Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today, once again, a very interesting weather report coming your way. We've got a lot of parts to the weather scene this forecast. We've got some Queensland and New South Wales rainfall that's now on the cards. We're up to 200 millimetres is possible between Newcastle and the Gold Coast. We're also going to be talking about some central Queensland rainfall, where we could be seeing a low pressure system dump a bunch of rainfall over some of the driest parts of Australia. We'll be talking about some cold weather powered by some powerful low pressure systems across South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. We've also got to talk about a powerful cold front that is on the cards for Western Australia as well. A lot of moving parts to this weather forecast. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. Starting things off over in Queensland and New South Wales, you can see it's a clear day and the clear conditions are going to be continuing for the next couple of days. However, if we pull the rainfall forecast back to today, you can already start to see some rainfall streaming in through central Australia. And if you've been catching up with the latest weather forecasts on this channel, you'll know that this is the precursor stuff to the heavy rainfall that's going to be materialising along the New South Wales and Queensland coastline. The forecast models have backed down on how much rainfall they do want, but still the risk of flooding on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday is still there. And we're going to break down the details for that right now. You can see we're going to be seeing a low-pressure trough extend through the Northern Territory into Queensland, and just behind that we're going to be seeing this rainfall here, and that's going to stream across Central Australia through the Northern Territory, South Australia and Queensland, before by around Sunday afternoon it starts to get itself jammed up in the northeastern corner of New South Wales and southeastern parts of Queensland. Now, some of this is going to be dragged away by a cold front that's going to impact New Zealand, but the remainder of this is going to get trapped here and get stuck and wrapped up into a low-pressure system, which you can see start to develop offshore from southeastern parts of Queensland from this low pressure area, and that's going to start to happen through Monday and then into Tuesday. Now, these showers are going to increase along the New South Wales coastline on the back end of this cold front, of course, but we're going to be seeing these showers move up to this trough line here, which is going to be located over Fraser Island by the looks of things on Tuesday. The forecast has shifted this a little bit further north, and this low pressure system that we've been talking about for the past minute is going to start to develop on a Tuesday, and it's going to be just offshore from Fraser Island. Now, below this low pressure system, stretching around 200 kilometres towards the south, there's going to be light to moderate rainfall, with some parts expecting some heavy rainfall, but the majority of that should remain offshore. Some moderate falls also expected inland on the Queensland coal country throughout the course of Tuesday, but they'll be easing off by the evening. And on the backside of this low pressure system and on the backside of the low pressure system that impacts Queensland, we're going to be seeing the heavy rainfall dragged up for locations between Taree up towards Coffs Harbour, Lismore and Grafton. Now, the majority of this rainfall should remain along the coastline, but just a heads up, some heavy showers are expected throughout the course of Tuesday evening, and by Wednesday evening they will be easing off, those light showers continuing right through to the next weekend. However, but still, it doesn't look like the forecast is as bad as what it once was. It's majority going to be a Tuesday event right now, easing off by Wednesday morning. The heavy rainfall will be concentrated around the Sunshine Coast, but still some isolated heavy showers expected along the northeastern New South Wales coastline, but like I said, right now it does look like it's going to be a predominantly Queensland weather event with just a bit of heavy rain for the northern parts of New South Wales. Great model congruency. I mean, it is only a couple of days away at this time. Tuesday the 2nd of July is when we're expecting all of this to start happening, and you can see the Axis G3 and the Eastern Relief on board with basically the exact same thing, and the GFS as well pretty much on board with the same thing as well. Those heavy showers should remain offshore, but still a little bit of moderate to heavy rainfall expected along the southeast Queensland coastline. They'll be including locations into northeastern New South Wales as well, extending north of Coffs Harbour, including Grafton, Lismore, up towards the Gold Coast, Brisbane, and then into the Sunshine Coast as well. But it shouldn't make it any further than Bundaberg at this time. Any questions on this weather event, please do leave them in the comment section down below. Now, these heavy showers that are going to be consistent along the New South Wales coastline will add up over the next 10 days. There will be pockets receiving up to 200 millimetres of rain, but you'll be able to notice that all of this rainfall does remain mostly offshore. There is a little bit of heavy rainfall up towards 100 millimetres that makes it ashore up towards Cape Byron and the Gold Coast and so forth, and some of the islands outside of Brisbane. But the majority of the inland areas, I mean, Grafton only expecting 10 millimetres now. That's down from about 100 yesterday. It's going to be quite an uncertain forecast. It's going to be basically on the day that we actually know what's going to be going on. There will be slow-moving showers moving through. They will be heavy, and when they get themselves over one location, it's going to going to be the difference between 5 millimetres and 50 millimetres of rainfall. And those heavy showers, they're not likely to cause minor or moderate riverine flooding, but they could certainly be causing some flash flooding in locations. The more moderate and predictable rainfall will be along the Sunshine Coast up around Caloundra and Noosa, and as far north as Hervey Bay by the looks of things. They could be expecting up towards 120 or 130 millimetres there, and the majority of that will be falling from Monday evening through to about Wednesday lunchtime. A lot of that falling on Tuesday. But for the most part, the inland areas not getting more than 50 millimetres of rainfall, and inland parts of New South Wales barely getting more than 20 millimetres of rainfall. Any more questions or comments on this weather event, please do leave them in the comment section down below. It looks like Tuesday there is certainly that chance of some heavy rainfall and flash flooding in northeastern New South Wales, but the majority of the weather threat has shifted north to southeastern Queensland at this time along the Sunshine Coast. So yeah, quite a lot to break down in this weather forecast. I'll have more information as the weather breaks on this weather system, because it is certainly a very interesting one. In terms of a wind threat as well, I mean, sometimes these low pressure systems can blow out some pretty strong winds. Not expecting wind gusts to exceed 60 or 70 kilometres an hour on the coastline. That's probably a pretty bullish estimate. Parts of Fraser Island on Wednesday morning, as this low pressure trough moves further north, could be receiving wind gusts up towards 70 or 80 kilometres an hour, and even down towards the Brisbane coastline as well, up towards 60 or 70 kilometres an hour there. And that will likely increase wave heights. You can see them on the forecast now, up towards 3 or 3.5 metres. So certainly boating conditions throughout Tuesday evening through to probably about Thursday morning by the looks of things. All of Wednesday looking quite hazardous, quite unpleasant, and quite nasty. So make sure you are on the land and staying away from the ocean. Those boating conditions will be quite nasty. It's much needed rainfall as well. If we were to take a look at a drought map up here in this part of Queensland and New South Wales, you can see once we drag this further forward, you can see they are completely out of drought conditions at this time, and soil moisture anomalies they'll be slightly above average to very much above average, but certainly where you want them to be. You don't want soil moisture values to be below average or close to below average, and it looks like the majority of Queensland and New South Wales looking at those above average soil moisture values. It is a bit risky when you're talking about some of the wettest parts of Australia this time of the year. However, it is certainly more good news than bad news. If you've been paying attention, over on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see this huge swathe of incredibly high soil moisture values on Sunday, the 7th of July. What could be causing this? It's some very heavy rainfall that's expected to materialise later next week, Thursday and Friday, and into next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and 7th of July. We're going to be expecting some very heavy rainfall to materialise over central Australia, unseasonably heavy rainfall as well. Once this weather system clears out of Queensland by Friday, we're going to be seeing a trough line extend from these southeasterly winds that are bringing rainfall to far north Queensland. That's another little thing next weekend, looking a little bit wet up in the far north there. But this trough line here extending across Central Australia is going to be promoting thunderstorm activity and rainfall activity through South Australia, the Northern Territory, and then into Queensland. You can see this Saturday and Sunday, a lot of light to moderate rainfall pipes up here in these inland communities, and it's pretty consistent. It is by the looks of this. This is going to be a big swathe, a couple of, it's going to be a couple of 100 kilometres long. It'll be a couple of 100 kilometres wide as well. It's going to be this big swathe of moderate to heavy rainfall in places. Certainly on the low pressure side of things, we're going to be talking about rain rates about 15 millimetres every 3 hours. So this light and moderate rainfall, which is going to be slow moving and huge in area as well, it's going to be bringing some very heavy falls to South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland, and even parts of the Northern Territory as well before it whittles away on Monday the 8th of July. Now, talking about rainfall accumulations here over the next 10 days, there are pockets expecting up to 100 millimetres of rainfall. Some big rainfall areas outside of Birdsville by the looks of things, up to 70 millimetres there, and these are parts of Australia that can go years without getting rainfall like this. And it's also parts of Australia that only receive 100 millimetres of rainfall a year. So this is some very heavy rainfall that they're expecting, 70 or 80% of their annual accumulations in some places, and half a year's worth of rainfall in other places in northwestern New South Wales and southwestern Queensland. Widespread totals above 50 millimetres of rain, and some accumulations up to 100 millimetres are possible. It's just going to be a day's worth of rainfall out in this part of New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia, even parts of the Northern Territory outside of Alice Springs towards Ayers Rock, Uluru, expecting up to 30 or 40 millimetres there. So it's looking like a fairly wet picture, and certainly going to be some flooding as a result of a weather system like this. It does not take much to flood the rivers out here, and 50 millimetres will more than likely be enough to bring some rivers up towards the moderate, maybe even the major flooding levels as well. So just stay safe if you are out here in this part of Queensland, and for all the grey nomads and travellers out in this part of Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia, the heads up next fortnight, roads are very likely to be closed off and washed away as a result of a weather system like this. So it's best to start thinking about taking detours. North looks nice and dry, but if you're going to go south, you're going to have to go down towards Victoria or the southern parts of South Australia, towards the Eyre Peninsula, because it's going to be all of the interior South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. That's kind of out of the play here in terms of roads that are likely to be washed away. And up in far north Queensland as well, won't forget about them up here there. We're also talking about up to 150, 160 millimetres of rainfall, the majority of that falling in the 5 to 10 day forecast period, so some heavy rainfall expected up there. Normally about this time of the year they do get a week of heavy rainfall, so it's nothing unseasonable out there, and it certainly is some good news to just top those rivers and dams up as well. So looking like a very interesting forecast here, clearing out by later next week. And once again, reciprocated amongst the forecast models, the GFS has gone a lot lower on the rainfall that they were expecting yesterday, and the Access G3 has done the exact same thing. So this is a very likely weather event at this time. I know I was pretty skeptical about it yesterday morning, but it looks like it is set in stone at this time. The ECMWF, the GFS and the Access G3 all in great congruency with each other. There will be details that have to be ironed out closer to the date, and like I said, any questions, please do leave them in the comment section down below. Your support on the channel has been greatly appreciated lately. Now, we've got to talk about the southern parts of Australia with this big cold front that's moving through at this time. It's very powerful indeed, and it's got a very strong core down here south of Tasmania, and that's piping up wind speeds very high indeed. Mount Cyclone Island at 63 kilometres an hour right now, Low Rocky Point 70 kilometres an hour, and Scotts Peak Dam at 65 kilometres an hour, with some very heavy rainfall currently falling around the area there. So it looks like we've got some very damaging winds along a lot of Tasmania. Severe weather warnings have currently been issued, and I'd not be surprised if we see wind gusts from a weather system like this approach 140 kilometres an hour throughout the course of today. It's going to be very, very windy down in Tasmania, and a lot of rainfall also streaming in through there. Now, just a typical winter weather system, but a cold front as powerful as this is going to leave something in its wake, and this Antarctic weather pool is going to be providing Melbourne with its coldest weekend for the year most likely, and some very cold temperatures across a lot of Australia, a lot of eastern Australia as well. This morning we're waking to temperatures close to zero across a lot of Victoria and into New South Wales, but those high winds are keeping things relatively mild. It's going to be starting from tonight when we see temperatures plunge below zero for parts of Tasmania, and then into the northern parts of Victoria and into the mountainous parts of New South Wales. I mean, from a early evening hours tomorrow afternoon, Sunday, we're going to be talking about conditions plummeting, temperatures absolutely plummeting across this part of New South Wales, -6 degrees, not even at midnight by the looks of things on Sunday, and then by Monday morning, freezing cold conditions to start off July. We're going to be talking about -6, -7 degrees in some places here. It's going to be bitterly cold up there. We're also talking about some very cold conditions moving up north into New South Wales, as far north as Orange, going towards zero, and the inland communities through New South Wales as well, very low single digits, and there's going to be a huge frost day Monday morning as well. So to all the agricultural communities in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania, prepare for some very powerful frosts throughout Monday and even towards Tuesday as well. Tuesday is going to be another bitterly cold night for Tasmania, New South Wales and Victoria, things only warming up as the sun rises, so very, very cold indeed, all powered by this powerful high pressure system in the wake of this strong low pressure system. Also likely to get some really low tides across parts of the Victorian coastline as well, coinciding with a new moon. We're going to be seeing some very low tides across this part of Victoria, so just a heads up there, although I'm not sure what you're going to be wanting to do boating in close to 0 degree temperatures, but each to their own. Very cold conditions extending through South Australia, even into the Northern Territory and Western Australia as well, with some pretty strong winds, reasonably strong winds as well. As the sun rises, we're going to be talking about some pretty low wind chills across parts of the Northern Territory, Western Australia, and then into South Australia as well. I also want to be talking about Western Australia. It's going to be a long video, this one, a very long forecast. We've got a cold front moving through Monday afternoon into Tuesday morning. It's going to be a reasonably strong one, but it's not going to be that far north, and as such, the thunderstorms and heavy rainfall concentrated at the southwest capes of Western Australia. We'll be talking about some moderate to heavy falls by Tuesday morning for the Perth metro area. It's going to be a cold night Wednesday morning. That low pressure system also causing some rainfall and some heavy falls around the Esperance coastline by the looks of things. It's a pretty weird low pressure system to be seeing here, interrupted by that powerful high pressure system in the Great Australian Bight. 1,044 24 millibars. That's very strong indeed. Now, I would also like to pull the forecast forward to next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and 7th of July, and then in towards Monday, the 8th of July. We're going to be talking about another powerful front moving through towards the Western Australia coastline, but it's going to be another head scratcher, this one. It's a very weird cold front to be looking at. It's powered by a powerful low pressure system here, but it's got this really weird shape to it. It's going to be drawing in a lot of moisture from the north, as with every cold front this year. Perth misses out in the worst of the rainfall, but it's the communities around Geraldton, Kalbarri, Northampton, then inland to Meekatharra, Mount Magnet and Kew and Murchison that get the worst of the rainfall, and that's just going to cause more problems for the roads and the road workers out there. They really need to get those roads fixed up after some more very heavy rainfall. But again, Perth and the southwest coast and the southwest Cape's really struggling to pick up some decent rainfall next weekend, but this is a powerful cold front here. It's going to be bringing some pretty strong winds in as well. We're talking about winds averaging 60 to 70 kilometres an hour and gusting up towards 80 or 90 kilometres an hour. And for the southwest Capes, we're talking about gusts up towards 110 kilometres an hour, and around the low pressure area, 130 kilometres an hour. So it's a very powerful low pressure system that's going to be swinging itself into the Perth metro area here. But it just looks like it's going to be a damaging wind threat next Sunday. The rainfall really doesn't look too high from a weather event like this. The majority of the rainfall on this 10-day forecast actually falling on Tuesday. And for the Perth metro area, only expecting a further 10 or 15 millimetres from that cold front. Once again, things can change, but it doesn't look like an overly wet system. And for inland communities into the wheat belt and even into the goldfields, really struggling to pick up some rainfall up towards 5 millimetres or more. But they're going to have no problem up around Carnarvon and Shark Bay, Coral Bay, that sort of area, where 130 millimetres is possible. Around this part of the nation, a huge amount of rainfall for this time of the year as well, and it's just more rainfall that they really don't need up here. The desert is so unbelievably green. If you've got the opportunity to travel up in this part of Western Australia, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful, and it looks like even more rainfall here. If it doesn't shut down the road network entirely, then it could be a very nice winter to do some travelling, or very nice spring to be doing some travelling up here. But right now, 130 millimetres of rain is probably the last thing that Coral Bay needs. Once again, things can change in the forecast. The GFS is a completely different scenario on the model forecast, but the Axis G3 is relatively similar on the forecast, so things can change, but it does look like this cold front has its details already ironed out. It's going to be a very powerful one, but it's not going to be bringing much rainfall to communities south of Geraldton, with only the wettest communities picking up maybe 20 to 25, maybe 30 millimetres if they're lucky. From a powerful cold front, you'd be expecting the wettest communities to be picking up 80, maybe even 100 millimetres in the southwest parts of Western Australia. So another very weird weather system coming through to Western Australia. I look forward to ironing out the details on a weather system like this. It's a hard forecast to be making, but I will be given the best forecast possible once the day comes. That is all from me today. It's been another very long-winded forecast. Take a look at the satellite picture. There is a lot going on around Australia this time, and there's even more on the forecast. Who knew winter weather could be as interesting as summer weather up in northern Australia? Certainly has kept me on my toes and very entertained this winter weather season. So thank you to the winter weather gods for providing weather like this. Really starting to ramble here. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this channel without them. Their support is greatly appreciated, and if you too want to become a channel sponsor, then please do consider clicking the join button as well. Thank you so much for watching to this point as well. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. We're getting closer to 16,000. That means we're getting closer to 20,000 viewers. A big group to be having, and that is a milestone that I would love to reach with your guys' help. Leave a like on the video as well, and tell me a weather report for your location in the comment section down below. Your support is greatly appreciated, and that is all from me, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.